everybody. This is also another very exciting alumni video. And this one's particularly exciting for me because this is Chevy. And I've known Chevy for what, about 10 years now, I guess, getting on at least 10 years. And so Chevy and I have known each other before I came across the 3 principles. So she's kind of like witnessed my journey through it. And I hopefully, I've been able to share some stuff with her. So Chevy has an amazing story. And so I just wanted you guys to meet her and see that, that there are no exceptions, that these ideas, anybody can get well. Because Chevy, when we met, right, you weren't doing so well. Yeah?
No, I was not.
Do you want to tell us a little bit about that? How, what it was like when we first met?
Okay, so when we first met, I think I had met you probably even a couple of months before I asked you to mentor me, just because the way I just, and I met you and I knew I needed something from you. It was like this, like knowing, but it was like your Britishness and kind of, I was in such a like low place that I was like, no, I'm not going there. That's going to be, and then I remember I hit this really, really steep low. And I was in after probably my 3rd suicide attempt or 4th within a year. Mm-hmm. And I was in the psych ward, in the locked up ward. Mm-hmm. And I remember speaking to a friend, and she said to me, like, it's time, like, it's now or never. Like, what are you choosing? Are you choosing life or death? And at that point, I was really, situations tumbled, and they were threatening to lock me up for life. They were like, we'll just put you in the chronic ward, because I was in and out, in and out, in and out. It was like, we let you out, you come back. We let you out, you come back. So it was just like, I was hitting that place where the top psychiatrist was telling me, we don't really have much of a choice but to put you in the chronic ward. And in this conversation that I was having with this friend from the psych ward, she said to me, Chevy, you can beg as much as you want to hit death, but like, ultimately, if you ask hard enough, you will get it. Is that really what you want? And I was like a little bit, after being threatened to be locked up for life, and really, that was a bit of a shakeup. It was like, wait, I think I really do, but there's this part of me that's still alive, that still just wants. And I knew at that point, it was like, I'm going to call Hannah. She was that woman that I was just, you were that person that I knew I needed help from you. I knew I needed that guidance, but I was scared. And I was at that point, that really, really low point where I said, okay, at this point, I really have nothing to lose. I'm sorry, Hannah. I was really from the goodness of my heart, but it was this, yeah.
I remember, because I remember when I got that call, would I, call you in the hospital? And it's not easy calling someone in a mental hospital, because, I would call up the number and, and it's all in Hebrew, and my Hebrew's not fantastic, even now. And I would get through to like maybe the nurse's station, and I'd say, can I speak to Chevy? And they go, oh yeah, and then put me on hold, and then eventually it would hang up, and I'm like, okay, try again. Next time I try, and they'd put me through to the day room, and another patient, would pick up the phone. I'd say, like, have you there? And they go, yeah, click. It would probably take me about 5 times each day to like just make 5 phone calls just to get through to you, even though we'd arrange, like be at the phone at 3 o'clock, whatever.
Yes.
Remember that?
If only it was 3 o'clock, it was 6 a.m., Hannah.
Sometimes, yes.
That was the only time that was able to actually be worked out. And I said, 6 a.m. it is. Yeah. And there were days that I woke up just for that phone call, just to be in touch and just to really, I remember days waiting for the phone to ring, and then the phone would ring, and there would be a patient being like, "It's calling. I need the
phone." Oh gosh, we've come a long way. So we started talking, and then I remember, you were able to get out the hospital, and you got yourself a minimum wage job, right? Remember? And how was that when you first came out?
When I first came out, oh my goodness, if I recall correctly, yes, I was cleaning rooms. I was cleaning hotel rooms. I was a mess. I was still a mess. Like I was really fighting to keep not even my head, like just my nose above the water. Like just give me some ear to my nose. Like I was fighting every single day to I was waking up at 6 a.m. and doing my thing and looking for a job and going around and going around. Yeah, that was an interesting job. Ultimately, slowly, I started pulling myself together. And I remember the first time, maybe this shouldn't be said on recording, but worst comes to worst, we can cut it out. I remember the first time you threw something out to me. I was on like a cocktail of meds, a cocktail. Like I had like a, a handful every morning,
Right.
and throughout every quarterly time. And, when you need this and when you need that, and when you have a panic attack and when you feel suicidal, it was like a thing for everything.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember the first time you mentioned some sort of inkling of, you're not going to be living with those forever. And I remember, I was like, that can't be. Like, you're not a psychiatrist. You don't know what's wrong with me. It was a very like, you don't even know, like, this is my oxygen.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember that moment, and it kind of like planted a seed in my head of like, wait, you might not need to live on these brain chemistry assessing, like putting it, like manipulating, that's what I was looking for, substances for your entire life. And that was a very, very foreign thing, because obviously in the psych wards and in any therapy I've been to, it was like the meds or death. There's no way that you can live functionally in this world without being medicated.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, and that was like the first time that it just kind of, but I still held on very tight to those drugs. They were still my lifeline. And then slowly I was in therapy also at the time. And I remember I hit a point, it was probably like 2 psychiatrist appointments later, because, I had to kind of build it up. And I told her, I said, I want off. And she just looked at me and she's like, no. Like, I want off. I'm done. Like, I can live. I can live in this world. And I was having full-fledged panic attacks. I was like blacking out in middle of the street. I'd just be like disassociative someplace else entirely. I struggled with self-harm as well. So that was kind of like, I was using that to get me out and proving that I was fine. I wasn't. But I really, really, really wanted to be in the world. And I was slowly feeling all of the meds were taking me away from being. Again, today I know it's also the way I thought about the meds, the way I depended on them, the way they were, like, it was my connection with them that was stopping me from being, not the meds, but that's a different story. So I told her I want off. She got scared. She kind of let me slowly and said, okay, so do a quarter and cut them and this and that and do this one. We made a whole schedule of coming off of the meds. Coming off was an absolute nightmare. I do not wish it on to my worst enemies. It was like just the physical withdrawal was a mess. Not sleeping, waking up, trying to work, who knows what. And ultimately, and then I probably like a month later, I'd gone to the psychologist and I told her, I was like, yeah, but I'm off of all my meds. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, the psychiatrist said I can. And then we went to the psychiatrist. She's like, I didn't say all of them. And I was like, well, I'm off of all of them and I'm fine. I wasn't fine, but I was like, but I'm fine. And she, like, I was like, you can't put them, like, if I'm fine, you're not going to put me back on.
Right.
Like, that's just backwards. Like, but you see, I don't need any of it. Wow. And that was it. That was kind of slowly how I really started recognizing, like, wait, there's more to this life than just either living medicated or wanting to die or wanting to self-medicate or self-harm or do anything just to get away from being, just to get out of this moment, just to get out of my head. That's really kind of that was just the beginning of the journey.
Yeah. I remember, and so we talked most days, and then, here you were, cleaning a minimum wage job. And I guess I asked you something about, so what do you want to do with your life? Because now that you were more present and I was like, oh, thank God she's like hanging around now. Then what are we going to do? Like, this isn't, cleaning hotel rooms isn't going to be your life. So I remember you told me right back at the beginning, you said that you'd always wanted to work with the Special Olympics. I that's what stuck in my mind. Like it just kind of came out of nowhere, it seemed, because, you know, I just knew you as someone who was really struggling, and I want to work with the Special Olympics. I'm like, okay, so how are we going to get there? Because, you know, did you do well in school? How did that
No,
happen?
I do not have a high school diploma until today.
Uh-huh.
That's fine. And but I really had this dream to work in Special Olympics. And I remember said, okay, so let's get started with at least special needs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I went around all the time to every single school and I handed in my this was a great story how I got my job in special needs. So I was showing up to different special needs schools and handing in my resume every day, taking the bus, going to this school, going to that school, researching. I had a cover letter and a resume, and probably was missing a good 5-6 years that I was totally incapacitated. And I was just dysfunctional in the world. So like kind of my resume ended 5 years prior, but I just hope nobody would notice that like it ended in 2013 while we're in 2020. But like the last functional job I had was like 10 years ago. But that's irrelevant. Anyway, so I was showing up and I was bringing my resume into every single school. And there was one school that I kind of was like, I really want to work there. It was like the icon of special needs in Jerusalem at the time where I was living. But I didn't even know how to get my resume in, because like when the bigger something is, the more compartments there are, and who do you turn to and how do you do that? And I remember I had contacted somebody maybe to just volunteer there. I was like, if I could just even volunteer there, that would be amazing. So I contacted somebody. They didn't get back to me for like 3 weeks. Finally, they get back to me. Yeah, we have a parade. You can come to the parade. And I was like, okay, I didn't speak the language. But I was like, you know what? They're inviting me to the parade. I'll go. And they came the day of the parade and I kind of got like a little antisocial. And I was like, but I don't know anybody and I don't speak the language and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, and I remember I had spoken to you and you said, just go. You never know. Like, just you committed to it. You got to go. Commit to something, you have to show up. That was not an obvious, like, it was like, if you commit to something, you call the day off and you cancel.
Right.
You pretend you're coming until the last minute and then you cancel. So
right.
Anyways, so I was at the time where I was really learning, you commit and you go. So I showed up I was on my way to the parade and I get a phone call from this school and they're like, hi, we're looking for workers. Are you available? And I was like, what? I'm on my way to volunteer at the parade. She's like, no, we don't need volunteers. We need workers. And I was like, but I'm coming to volunteer. What does that mean? She's like, well, we got your resume. They got my resume from when I had made Aliyah when I moved to Israel. I gave in my resume probably like 2-3 years ago to the organization Nefesh B'Nefesh that was helping us with placements and kind of like in order to become a resident, you needed to give in some sort of resume. And they had sent in my resume to this school.
Oh, wow.
That was the only school that I did not send my resume into. I was on my way to the parade and they called me for a job. I know I was dressed up to go to a parade. Yeah. I was like wearing like a t-shirt and shorts. I wasn't like dressed up for a job interview. She's like, but if you're coming, can we interview you now? And I'm like, help. I went, I did the parade. It was just a big, huge party, balloons, people, kids, wheelchairs, everything's exciting. And then I get a call in the middle of the parade, come over to the side. And that was it. That was how I started working in special needs. I had my interview there. Obviously, my boss was like, if you just showed up to volunteer, you're more than welcome to come work. I didn't have to do much convincing that I'm passionate about this field. Right. And that was it. The next day, I started working there.
Right. And I remember you were looking, it was a hospice, right? You were looking after babies who...
Yes. It was like a special needs child, like baby care.
Yeah. I mean, it was babies who weren't going to make it, right? So I remember thinking...
some, yes.
Yeah, how distressing that was. And yet you were really, really good at it, you know? And so what happened next? So you had this job, you were taking care of these small children and babies. And I just remember you kind of fell in love with these kids.
Yes.
And you had a supervisor who said, you're really good at this. You know, so you needed to get some qualifications, right? So how did it go with the qualifications? How did that work?
So that was also after I got this job in special ed and I started saying, wait, we're starting to get a track record here because you said, what do you want? And I was like, special needs and Special Olympics. And I'm seeing actually steps moving towards this thing. And I whispered, I remember this conversation where it was. I was still smoking at the time. And I remember it was a very stressful conversation because there was a part of me that really wanted, you said to me, Javi, if you could have anything in the world, what is it that you want? And I said, I said it so quietly. I don't even think, said, I would love to have a degree, but I can't have one. Like, I like, it was like, what do you want? I want this, but I can't have it. Like, and he said, why not? No, first he said, what do you want? Like, say it loud. Tell me what you want. Cause I was whispering. And I said, I would love to have a degree, but I can't. Why not? I said, well, because I have ADD and I have ADHD and I dropped out of high school and I have some sort of dyslexia that my eyes don't work together. Do you remember that? I was obsessed with that. I wrote on that one a long time.
Yeah. I can't see, I can't do it.
I can't read, let alone, I can't speak the language was never even an excuse. Which is actually, I think, the most real, but none of them are real anyways. So that was it. So I said, well, I have this and I have that and I have this. And you said, so go get it. And I was like, but you don't understand. Like you clearly don't hear that I am telling you I have ADHD. And if I have ADHD, that means I can't have a degree. Like it was like, I had to explain to you how the world works. And
I wouldn't listen.
And that was it. And you just said, you want it, go get it. And slowly I registered for my psychometry, which is like the SATs, the prerequisite entry exams. Started studying. This was a lot of high school material that I had missed out on, that I had no idea, algebra, geometry, all of these things that were like way above my scope of learning. But I went and I did it.
You did it, yeah.
And I pulled I think 536, and in order to get accepted to the university I wanted, I needed a 540. And I said, oh, it's over.
Oh God, I remember that. Yeah. So then what happened?
So then he said, well, you still want it? And I said, yeah. I said, okay, so apply. I said, but you don't understand again. There were a lot of things I thought. So I applied, and they wanted to know why I don't have a high school diploma. They wanted to know what I was doing in life, how, blah, blah, blah. And I went for, initially they're like, well, potentially we can't really.
Right. So this is the bit I remember. I remember you got accepted to university, but there was some problem with your mental health record, right? And I can still remember you being, I said to you, go to the hospital and ask them to give you a new, I don't know what the words are, but a clean bill of health. And you're like, forget, don't be stupid. Like you told me like I was being ridiculous. I said, what have you got to lose? So I'll never forget, I remember you getting on the bus, and it was like, this is how I remember it. It's like, when a rocket takes off and then there's like a blackout time while the rocket goes through, I don't know, atmosphere. And then they're like, Houston, we can, right? There was a time when you were sitting in front of the psychiatrist and I didn't know what was happening because you were going like, it's not going to work. It's not going to work. They're not going to listen to me. Like you had about 10 different diagnoses at that point, right? And then you went into the hospital so what happened when you were sat in front of the psychiatrist, when you came back for a new bill of health? What was it like?
First of all, I remember sitting in the waiting room, watching people coming in and out and just looking, I'm like, this is like a legal drug dealing situation. Like just watching, because I had reached the point where I knew how to state my symptoms so I would get the meds and the drugs that I wanted.
Right.
I was making everything up in order to just shut down what I just the noise in my head.
Right.
And if the psychiatrist wasn't looking to shut down the noise in my head, she was looking to eliminate symptoms. I was looking to eliminate noise. Like it was like, what you can give me whatever, And I remember just sitting there and understanding that basically everybody potentially can do that, look up their own symptoms and make up what they want and come out with their drug of choice. Like if it, whatever meds it is, they're just coming out with whatever it is that they wanted. And I remember going in, and then I went in and I was like, here, I need a letter that I'm okay, that I can be a teacher and that I can work with children. She looked at me and she's like, what? And yeah, I want to be a teacher. I'm going to school to study. She's like, what do you mean school? She thought like I was talking, maybe I was finishing my high school diploma. And I was like, no, I want to go to university to be a teacher and I need a clean bill of health. I need you to write. So she started writing my entire history. And I was like, can you cut that out? We don't need to. And she's like, I've just never written a letter like this before.
Wow.
She has never written. It shocked me. I was like, it was then that it became so clear that this is just another, I have no other word for it, but fallacy. Like it was just another thing that somebody in authority is convincing you to believe that you're true, that you don't really have, because they're authority and they studied, you believe them.
Right.
And then you just kind of become subservient to whatever they're telling you, how to live your life, what to take, when to take it, and just kind of zombieing.
Right. It's kind of depressing to think a doctor has never written a clean bill of health letter before. You know, it's like, that's really frightening. Okay, so I remember you came out and she gave you some kind of letter that
He
helped,
did.
you know, got you into university, and you studied physical education. Is that what you
Yes.
said? Yes. Amazing.
Yes, I studied physical education. I majored in postural development. And then I finished my bachelor's.
Mm-hmm. And whilst you were doing your bachelor's, you started your
master's.
Which just blew my mind when you said, yeah, I'm doing my master's at the same time. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Amazing.
That was, yeah. And so I did my bachelor's and then I just continued to my master's because I was just like,
why not?
Why not? I'm here already. I'm in it. Let's just keep it going.
Right.
And yeah, that's basically how I got my master's in kinesiology.
Wow.
Lots of nutrition, genetics, chemistry, biochemistry, biomechanics, anatomy, physiology, psychology,
right.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, amazing. So here we are now. It's an amazing story. And you tell me what you're doing now, because this is like to the punchline. It's incredible. Tell me what you're doing now.
So recently I was at a run up north. I was at a race and I met this guy and I started chatting with him because anybody that speaks English in Israel, I'm like, oh my gosh, we share a language.
Right.
And become friends with them. And I started chatting with him and it turns out that he is a coach. First, he said for the Paralympics, which is people that have some sort of limb impairment. And I was like, okay, I'll do that too. It's fine. I'll do it. Yeah. And then he was with somebody who I was pretty sure had really, really low, high functioning cerebral palsy. And I was like, but that's not Paralympics, that's Special Olympics. And so I was just kind of like, wait, something's going on here. And I started chatting with him and I started mentioning, and so I asked him what he does, and he turns out he's a coach. And it turns out he's a coach for the Paralympics. And then we continue talking. Turns out he's a coach for the Special Olympics. I said, oh, can I just tag along with you wherever you go? Can I just learn from you? And that was it. So I started chatting with him and I said, I'd love, love, love to come out and volunteer and help out. And he said, so I went last week to this national countrywide competition up till the age of 16, I think. And I had a great time. And then next week he said, we'll put you as judge.
A judge?
So I got in charge of the time, which was really cool. That's tomorrow. Sorry, that's tomorrow.
Wow.
Tomorrow I'm going to be going to my next practice, which is for the adults.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, they're sending out, the Special Olympics is in like 2 weeks.
Amazing.
So they're sending out a whole slew of Israeli athletes out to the Special Olympics. And here I am. I don't know if I'll go out with the crew, but I'm still kind of
you're part of it. It's amazing.
I'm part of it, and I'm living in that reality of
yeah. So along the way, like I came across the three principles, and I know I started sharing it with you, and I know at the beginning you were probably like, what is she talking about? Right?
to say it nicely, yes.
Yeah. But how do you feel about it now? I mean, you went from like this incredible, like tortured by your own thinking, and then something shifted and changed in your understanding of how experience is created. So how do you see that now? What do you see happened?
I think for me, really what like even I would maybe calmed me down is the right word. What gave me that like reassurance was started like through learning through principles. Learning that my mental health is always readily available. Like I can sense when I'm going down a rabbit hole, and sometimes I still will go right there. I will go there and I will cause myself intentional suffering. But even when I do that, first of all, I'm very aware that I'm doing that. So then there's this part that like eats myself alive. It's like, you know better, but it's fine. I let it be. I don't try to like get into but I know that even when I'm in that, like when I hit those places, it used to be like, oh my gosh, I'm suicidal. I need to die. It must mean I'm depressed. Let's call the psychiatrist. It's an emergency. And find myself 10 minutes later in the emergency room with palpitations, not knowing how did that happen? Right. And today, even if I do reach, I wouldn't say it's not, the places are not a quarter as dark as they were at all. But even when I do get into a place that's maybe a little uncomfortable for me, with accompanied by thoughts that are bringing on feelings that are a little uncomfortable for me, I know I have a knowing today that my mental health is a second away. Like I don't need to go anywhere or be in the psych ward for 6 months and go through a process and go through a whole questionnaire and survey and do a specific diet and do a specific exercise in order to get back to that place that I was once healthy. Yeah. I know that I always am healthy. And knowing that just really is just, it's less scary. It's less scary when things feel unhealthy. Yeah. Like when things feel like they're going south, or it's just less scary because I know I'm a second away. I know it's like, okay, it'll go south, but it'll go north again. Like south and north is just all relative. It's just words.
Yeah, it's all made up.
Yeah. Yeah. And so like when I like it helps me not take myself so serious. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is.
Wow. I'm so proud to know you, first of all. And to have watched your journey, you know, from where you came from, like from when we first met. My first memory of you is with your hoodie up, your feet on the table, arms folded. I'm not talking to anybody. Right? That's how I.
Sounds about right. And probably sitting in a back corner, because that was like,
yeah.
I was always in a back corner with my feet up on a chair, like huddled into my own self. Being like, these are my thoughts and nobody can touch them.
Right. And it's almost like you had a sign up saying, don't talk to me, don't come near me. Right. And then here you are, like when I went to your graduation, you know, when you graduated university, it was like, it was such a proud moment, you know, to see what you've accomplished, and in a second language, you know, despite what you've been through, you know, absolutely incredible. So I am waiting now to go to your PhD graduation. Like, I know you're gonna go for be a doctor. I know it.
Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah,
I always thought
sky's the limit, you know, like there's nothing stopping you now, you know. The only thing that can stop you is your thinking, and you know now that that's just an illusion. It's not real, right?
It's the only thing that stopped me the whole time. Just today, I know it's not real.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank you for showing up and telling us your story. You know, it's really been a privilege, you know, I'd say, to know you. Like, nothing's ending. It's just I'm introducing you to, I'm sharing you with other people now. So
well, thank you for hosting me. This has been lovely.
Yeah. And I know you're going to do amazing things, you know, with the Olympics, and, you know, and all the people that you come and, you know, that you're going to help with your, you know, with what you've learned and what, you know, your experience is amazing. So thank you so much. And I wish you all the best.
Thank you. You too.
Bye.